All right, let's jump straight into this explainer. You know, we usually think that building a truly terrifying, inescapable world takes hundreds of pages of dense exposition. But today we're looking at a source text that manages to build an absolute fortress in your mind using practically nothing at all. Seriously, if you're a writer, a world builder, or maybe you're running a tabletop RPG campaign, this is a literal masterclass in how minimalist language creates an incredibly vivid reality. We're going to explore how words, even in their absolute leanest form, can build the ultimate trap.
But before we actually look at the source itself, I want you to ask yourself something. What exactly constitutes a truly inescapable barrier? I mean, if you wanted to design the perfect trap, a place totally, completely severed from the rest of humanity, how would you go about it? Would you just build massively thick concrete walls? Maybe bury it miles underground? Or would you place it somewhere so absurdly inaccessible that the environment itself becomes the warden? Just keep that idea of ultimate entrapment in the back of your mind as we reveal exactly what we're breaking down today.
Okay, here it is. This right here is our entire source text. Let me read it to you. Excerpts from the Shark-Bound Bastion of the Remote Isle, the remote island prison surrounded by sharks. And that's it, just 15 words. Yes, we are absolutely analyzing a redundantly named shark prison based on one single glorious sentence. But hey, do not let the brevity fool you. The author literally doesn't waste a single syllable here. Every word in this little fragment serves a highly specific, totally terrifying purpose. So, we're going to pull this apart layer by layer to see exactly how this psychological trap is built.
All right, let's start with our very first layer of spatial isolation, the remote isle. Before we even talk about the prison itself, before we even mention the threats, bam, we are hit with geography. The text instantly grounds us in the concept of a totally solitary island. It gives us water in every single direction, no neighboring landmasses, no easy trade routes, just you and the ocean.
Now, by definition, remote means situated far from the main centers of population, right? It's distant. And the text doesn't just casually drop that it's an island, it specifically emphasizes that it is a remote isle, establishing right off the bat that distance itself is the primary psychological weapon. Like, being on an island is one thing. A tropical vacation is on an island, you know? But a remote isle? That signifies a complete and utter severance from the safety net of civilization. It means literally no one is coming to help you. The horizon offers absolutely zero hope, just an endless expanse of emptiness.
Okay, so we've got our geography set, an empty, distant ocean. But what sits on this island? Let's look at the architectural terror presented in these few words. The text hands us two distinct structural terms to describe the facility. It's a prison, yes, but it is also a bastion. And honestly, the pairing of these two specific words is incredibly deliberate. What's really fascinating here is the choice of the word bastion. It implies something way more aggressive than just a simple holding facility. When you hear prison, you think cells, iron bars, guards, right? A place to just keep people against their will. But a bastion? That is inherently military. It's a stronghold. Structurally, it's an angular projection designed specifically to deflect artillery and repel massive organized assaults. It implies heavily armed resistance and a totally unyielding defense. So, the really crucial takeaway here is this contrast. While a prison is designed to keep threats in, a bastion is designed to actively repel the outside world. It creates a two-way barrier of absolute impenetrable exclusion. This isn't just a place trying to stop a solitary inmate from digging a tunnel with a spoon. No way. This is a fortress built to withstand an entire armada trying to break that inmate out. The architecture alone is telling us a story of extreme paranoia and extreme security.
So we have the immense distance, and we have the intense architecture. Now, for most facilities, a hyper-remote location and bastion-level fortifications would be more than enough, right? But the text doesn't stop there. It throws in one final, absolutely terrifying perimeter. It introduces this organic element to the security system that completely flips the tone of this captivity.
I really want you to think about this for a second. If heavily fortified walls on a super distant island somehow aren't enough, what is the ultimate deterrent against escape? I mean, eventually someone could scale a wall. Someone could maybe piece together a raft. Or, hey, even bribe a guard. But how on earth do you negotiate with nature? How do you bargain with a force that just fundamentally doesn't understand reason, or mercy, or humanity?
Oh, you use sharks. The text, bluntly, almost casually, drops in this unrelenting biological threat. It tells us point blank that this island prison is surrounded by sharks. Not jagged rocks, not some harsh rip currents, but literal apex predators. This is a primal, hardwired fear being injected right into the architectural layout of the place. It transforms the surrounding water from just an obstacle into an active, incredibly hungry adversary.
And the math of this situation is just brutally simple. We are talking about, a shark-infested bay on the south side of the island. The text explicitly says, surrounded by sharks. There is zero safe harbor. There's no quiet little beach where you could try to launch a makeshift boat. We are talking about a 100% continuous perimeter of apex predators. The border is quite literally alive, and it is entirely hostile to you. So let's look at how the text reinforces this feeling of dread through its specific linguistic choices, because the author doesn't just say, oh hey, there are sharks in the water. No, they use a very particular hyphenated phrase in the title that conceptually fuses the facility with the animals themselves. They call it a Shark-Bound Bastion. Let's break down that suffix, bound. It means restricted, confined to, or tied to a specified place. By calling this a shark-bound bastion, the sharks are suddenly no longer just a dangerous feature of the water. They are the definitive, physical binding agent of the prison itself. Think of it like those iron hoops on a wooden barrel. The sharks are what actually hold the very concept of this bastion together. They are woven right into the structure's identity.
So let's review how this text traps us in 3 distinct steps, almost like a terrifying set of Russian nesting dolls. First up, you have the cell, inside the prison. That's the immediate physical captivity. Second, you have the remote isle, this vast, basically uncrossable geographic isolation. And then finally, step 3, you have the shark-bound perimeter, an active biological moat that essentially guarantees your death even if you somehow miraculously conquer the first 2 steps. I mean, it is a literal masterclass in layered security.
But honestly, what I find most fascinating as an explainer of this text is the linguistic redundancy. In just 15 short words, the author repeats themselves heavily. They say shark-bound and then immediately clarify that it's surrounded by sharks. They say remote isle and then immediately call it a remote island. Now you might be wondering, why do that? In most writing classes, this would get heavily edited out. But here, if you're trying to build atmosphere, the sheer redundancy of the phrasing acts like an echoing drumbeat. It just hammers the point home over and over, completely cementing the total impossibility of escape in the reader's mind. It's incredibly claustrophobic writing. The words themselves trap you in this looping nightmare of isolation and sharks. So, to wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final, super provocative thought. We've spent all this time looking at these extreme, overlapping layers of isolation. The vast geographic distance, the military-grade bastion fortifications, the 100% perimeter of apex predators. But ask yourself this, what on earth requires this much security? If you absolutely need a remote isle, a military bastion, and a literal wall of sharks just to keep something locked away, just how dangerous is the thing living inside that cell? The true horror of this text isn't actually the isolation itself. It's the deeply unsettling implication of what that isolation is designed to hold. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive, and I will catch you on the next explainer.